Hi everyone, welcome back. My name is Sarah. I hope you guys are all here for class number 3 of my online photography classes. I wanted to start off by saying thank you so very much for sending in all of your photos on shapes. There's some really great images and it looks like you guys got out to exploring a bit, exploring your different angle of views. So getting up high, getting down low, and taking maybe some different photos than you might not have before. So this week, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about texture and taking photos of things that have texture. Now, I bet some of you are wondering, what is texture? How do I know if I'm taking a picture of something with texture on it? Well, when we talk about texture, what we are doing is we're describing how the surface of something feels or how it looks. So it can be hard, or it can be soft, it can be smooth or rough, or it can be shiny or flat. It might even be fluffy. Those are some examples. So one of the things that we do in photography is we take pictures of things that have texture to show others what it is that we're seeing. And when we have texture in our photos, what it can do is it can engage our senses. So things like how with touch, how something feels, or if we look at it with our eyes, we can see maybe that it's rough or ragged. Sometimes with texture, it can engage our sense of smell, like with a food photo, or it can even sort of get our taste buds watering when we see a picture of something that looks really good to eat. It's our way of expressing what it is that we're seeing and how we're sharing it with others. So let's take a look at a few examples so that you can get a better idea of what texture might look like. Okay, so let's take a look at a few examples. Here we have some clouds. And the texture that these clouds have is kind of fluffy, so they look like they're soft. Whereas here we have a pile of wood, and the pile of wood looks really sort of rough and sharp in some spots. It's a hard surface. So if just by looking at it, we can kind of tell how it feels, then we know we have a photo that shows texture. Here we have some look like kind of dandelion fluff, and it's very soft. It looks very soft and fluffy. Whereas here we have a whole bunch of pine cones, and they have what look like sharp edges. They're rough, and even the bark on the tree looks kind of rough. So photos that have texture in them, they give us a sense of how things would feel if we were to touch them. You can also have soft texture, like in this rose bush. This rose flower here, the petals on it are really soft. Whereas here, the picture of the tree branches, the bark on the tree is really rough and ragged. So it looks like it might be hard and rough to touch it. You can also have examples of texture that is shiny. So these mushrooms here, they're wet, so they look like they're kind of shiny. And then here we have kind of a weed on the beaches in the sand, and it has sort of a fine, smooth-ish texture. You can also think of texture in the way of food. So here we have a close-up of a pineapple, and it looks really prickly. The edges of a pineapple are very prickly. You can also have something that is kind of smooth on top. The pizza here, the cheese and the sauce have kind of a smooth finish, whereas the basil leaves on top, they have a bit more of a kind of rugged, rough texture to them. So you can have multiple textures in a photo. I would say that crunchy, kind of a rough texture is also a good example. Things like baking, cookies, kind of cinnamon crispy things, they have sort of a crusty type texture. As does bread. These loaves of bread here, they've got kind of a hard surface and it looks kind of rugged. So by showing that, we kind of get a sense of how, if we were to pick up the loaf of bread, what it might feel like. Another example of a smooth and shiny surface, this here is a box of tomatoes, and we can see that it is very, very smooth. So if we were to grab one of them, it would feel smooth to us. Here we have some waffles. How many of you guys like waffles? Yeah, they're great for breakfast. So by looking at this, we can see kind of the little grooves, and it looks the rugged edges, so it has a bit of a rougher texture to it. And here we have an example of a whole bunch of different textures. The grapes are smooth, the bread is kind of crusty, the cheese is smooth, the carrots are kind of rough around the edges, and then we've got some meat in the background that's kind of smooth as well. So you can combine all kinds of things that have different textures to give a really interesting photo. So one of the things that we'll want to pay attention to when we start taking photos of things that have texture is your point of view. Now, this is something that we practiced last week, so you guys should all be pros at this. So you may have to explore a little bit to get the best point of view to allow you to show off that amazing texture that you're seeing and that you want to take a photo of. And you may also have to spend a little bit of time to search things out that have texture. So don't get discouraged. Keep looking. And if you can't seem to find anything, then it's okay to take a break and maybe try again later. But have patience and keep your eyes open. Now, your assignment for this week is to explore things that talk to your senses. Things that you might taste or smell, like a pineapple or a loaf of bread maybe. Look for things that you might see or you might hear, maybe crunchy leaves on the ground or even some fluffy snow. And what I'd like you to do is spend a couple of days exploring and looking for things that have texture. And then, when you're done, you can choose 5 of your favorite photos, and if you're participating, you can send them in to my email address. Parents, here's my email address you can send it to. Now, I've had a question about if it's okay for you to send in photos that you've already taken. Now, ideally, I would like you to take new pictures each week for each of the assignments to send in. But if you have a photo that you've already taken and you're really proud of it, then absolutely send it in and we'll get that added to the slideshow. I wish you guys all the best of luck. Hopefully you'll be able to find lots of really cool things that have texture in them. I'm very much looking forward to seeing what you're seeing on your end. So until then, we'll say bye for now and we'll see you again next week. Thanks very much, guys. Bye.